What if the night you finally said yes, the earth itself tore you apart? Welcome to today's story. If you love emotional, cinematic AMBW dramas with time travel and a love strong enough to bend history, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story. Now, let's dive into the night. Ava Lily opened her eyes on a burning battlefield, and everything changed. The air in Chicago was sharp with spring rain, but Ava Lily barely noticed it through the glass. She sat in the corner booth of her favorite cafe, alone, drained, and humiliated. Her reflection stared back at her in the window. Eyes that once burned with ambition, now dulled by betrayal. Her startup, Phoenix Grid Technologies, had been stolen from under her by her co-founder and her fiancé, whom she had introduced. They had announced their engagement 2 days ago on LinkedIn, complete with a power couple photo taken in front of what used to be her lab. Ava didn't cry. She packed. She booked a last-minute solo trip to South Korea with the same fierce precision she used to launch patents. No itinerary, no tourist plans, just her passport, her camera, and the deep ache of needing to disappear. 3 days later, Ava found herself standing in the heart of a Korean mountain fortress, alone. The tour group had moved on. She remained in the underground chamber, hypnotized by a projected film playing on the cold stone wall. The footage depicted a war from the 7th century, a prince betrayed by his bloodline, a rebellion that scorched the capital, and a mysterious woman from beyond the land, said to have turned the tides of battle. Ava crossed her arms, whispering, "Sounds like she did all the work, and they just called her a legend to avoid giving her a name." Suddenly the lights flickered. The film stopped. Then came the rumble. A jolt thundered beneath her feet. Dust rained from the ceiling as the ground shuddered. Before she could scream, the marble beneath her cracked like a dropped plate. Ava fell. Darkness. Pain. Silence. Then smoke. Her lungs burned. Her hand moved first, then her legs. Dazed, bloody but alive, Ava crawled out of what looked like a collapsed tunnel, coughing against the thick ash in the air. She looked up and froze. The world had changed. Smoke blackened the sky above. Flames tore through tents. Horses shrieked. Men screamed in ancient dialects. Swords clashed against shields. Bodies hit the ground. She staggered forward, the sleeves of her bomber jacket torn, her modern leggings singed. "What the?" she gasped. Then she saw it. A man, surrounded. 5 attackers circled him. He moved with grace, but he was wounded. Blood ran down his face. One raised a sword behind him. Ava didn't think. She ran. She snatched a drop spear from the ground and hurled it. Pure instinct. The blade pierced the attacker's back with brutal precision. Silence. The man turned, eyes wide. So did the remaining soldiers. Ava raised her hands slowly. Okay, maybe not my best idea. But the man didn't strike. He stared at her like she was something holy. "Heaven-born," he whispered. His name was Duck Hwan. To the soldiers who rushed toward them, he ordered in ancient Korean, "Stand down!" But one soldier, furious, pointed to Ava. "That creature dropped from the fire! She's a demon!" "She saved me," Duck Hwan said, voice deadly calm. "And you question my orders?" The soldier dropped his gaze. Duck Hwan approached her, sword dripping, blood crusted on his temple. "You are not from here," he said in perfect Korean. "But I've seen you before, in dreams." Ava backed away. "You've definitely hit your head." Then her legs gave out. She hadn't noticed the gash on her thigh. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Who are you?" she breathed. He looked at her, not with suspicion, but wonder. "You are the sign the stars have spoken of." They brought her to a hidden camp deep in the woods. Her clothes alone sparked horror. Her phone, now dead, was called a black mirror. Duck Juan alone ordered it not be destroyed. She is not a threat, he told his advisors. She is a disruption. She overheard the others whispering in the tent behind her. What if she's a spy from the western provinces? What if she's a gift from the ancestors? What if she's a curse? Duck Juan entered her tent hours later, carrying herbs and fresh linen. I know what you're thinking, Ava said, her sarcasm still intact despite the pain. You rescue me? Then poison me to make sure I'm not an omen. He smiled for the first time. I don't believe in omens, he said. Only timing. But in the towns, word had spread. Dong Ho, the prince's ruthless cousin, stood over a war map with clenched fists. She appeared the day Duck Juan survived an ambush that was supposed to end him. She is not heaven-born. She is a threat. Then what should we do? Kill her, Dong Ho snapped, before the people believe she is the fulfillment of prophecy. Back at the camp, Ava limped out of the tent to find Duck Juan alone, sharpening his sword beneath the stars. You keep staring at me like you've seen me before, she said. I have, he replied. Not here. Not in this life, but somewhere. She folded her arms. Do you always flirt with women you've dreamed about? Duck Juan chuckled softly. No. But you're the only one who fell from the sky. Ava stared at the fire. I wasn't meant to be here, she said quietly. He looked at her, voice low. Maybe you were. That night, Dong Ho sent assassins, and Duck Juan was ready. Ava fought like her body remembered more than her mind. Every strike was clumsy but effective, and when she stood, gasping, hands trembling above a blade, Duck Juan watched her with awe. You're not from this world, he whispered, but maybe this world belongs to you now. Dong Ho's war council. The great hall reeked of wine and blood, torches guttered in iron sconces, shadows twitching across the faces of generals and lords who bent the knee to Dong Ho. He lounged on the dais, crownless but drunk on power, his goblet of black wine slamming against the stone floor. The liquid spread like blood. She is becoming something else, Dong Ho hissed. His voice was low, venom curling around every word. A general cleared his throat, hesitant. The people whisper of her. They call her the Black Star. Some believe she was sent by heaven. Laughter rippled across the hall. Sharp, nervous, empty. Dong Ho rose, the mirth dying instantly. His eyes gleamed like a wolf's. Do you think heaven favors women who crawl out of nowhere? His hand shot out, seizing the general's collar. Or do you think she is stealing the crown that is mine by right? He shoved the man back, pacing toward the window. Beyond the glass, fires burned across the horizon. Provinces Duck Juan once ruled, now swallowed into Dong Ho's grip. Sando, Gewa, Bekrim. 4 provinces have fallen to me already, Dong Ho murmured, his voice almost tender. Their armies now march under my banners. Their rice feeds my soldiers. Their sons bleed for me. He turned sharply, his cloak whipping behind him. And yet, his lips curled in a sneer. Duck Juan still breathes. He still dares to crown himself heir. And worse, he shields that woman. His fists clenched at his sides, trembling with rage. If he protects her, Dong Ho's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a growl. I want both of them dead. The hall froze. No one breathed. Dong Ho smiled slowly, cruelly. And when their bodies are dragged through the capital, when their blood soaks the palace steps, then the world will know. He spread his arms wide, as if the flames on the horizon answered him. There is only one sovereign left in this kingdom, and it is me. What they didn't know is that She didn't just fall into the past, she crash-landed into destiny, and now the world would burn to decide her fate. The sound of swords clashing echoed through the pine-swept valley like thunder. Ava grunted, the blade in her hand jerking under the force of Duck Juan's strike. Her muscles burned. Her hands bled. Her heart raced, but not from fear, from determination. She blocked his next strike and countered, sweat flying from her brow as she spun. Duck Juan caught her arm mid-move, twisting behind her until the blade was at her throat. "You dropped your guard," he whispered, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his breath on her skin. Ava clenched her jaw. "Then next time, I won't." He released her. She stepped forward, chest heaving, eyes blazing. "I'm not your concubine," she said. "I'm not your prophecy. And I'm sure as hell not a souvenir from the sky." Duck Juan's expression didn't shift, but his voice softened. "I never said you were." She didn't lower her sword. "I'm stuck here, Duck Juan. So I will rise here. I'll earn every inch of ground I stand on." His eyes lingered on her face. "Then let me teach you," he said. Every morning before sunrise, she trained. Every night, long after the fires had died, Duck Juan stood beside her, guiding, challenging, watching. Sometimes, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Their silence was full of unspoken tension, like thunderclouds thick with rain that refused to fall. When her legs failed, he caught her. When her wrists gave out, he wrapped them. When she cursed the pain, he offered no pity, only his hand. "You're learning," he said after one grueling session. "I'm bleeding," she muttered. "Same thing," he replied. That night, as they stood overlooking the camp, a hush settled between them. Duck Juan handed her a cup of bitter root tea. "For the pain." "Does it help?" "No." They both laughed. And in the stillness, Ava looked at him for a long time. "What are you really fighting for?" she asked. Duck Juan looked away. "Something I once lost," he said, "and something I hope not to lose again." One late night, Ava sneaks into the archery yard to blow off steam. Duck Juan joins her. They compete with bows, whoever hits closer to the center. She beats him, barely. He steps behind her, correcting her form. His hand covers hers. His breath brushes her ear. Their heads turn the same moment. Their lips almost touch, until a guard clears his throat with news. Both pull away too quickly, hearts racing. A week later, Ava followed an older man into the candlelit library beneath the old palace ruins. His name was Master Eugen, the royal scholar. He had studied her with narrowed eyes for days, observing the stitching on her jacket, the rubber soles of her boots, the metal zipper. "Your garments," he said. "They match the ones in the ancient scrolls." "What scrolls?" she asked, her heart thudding. He lit another candle and pulled an old, crumbling bundle from a stone compartment behind a rusted statue. He unrolled the first. There, drawn in shaky ink, was a woman in modern clothes, her posture rigid, her expression confused. Ava stepped back. "That's not me." "No," he said, "but it is someone like you." He flipped to the next scroll. Another figure. A man this time, dressed in what looked like a business suit, trapped behind bars. "These people came from nowhere," Eugen said. "Just like you. And none of them lasted." "Why?" "Because they tried to leave before understanding why they arrived." Ava stared at the scrolls. Her voice came out in a whisper. "How many of us were there?" He paused. 12, that we know of, all called Skyborn. Later that night, Ava stormed into Duck Juan's quarters. "You knew." He turned, eyes shadowed in the lamplight. "I suspected." "You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you. I'm already scared." Silence stretched. Then Duck Juan spoke, voice low. I didn't tell you, because I'm one of them. They sat under the stars, his tent a pool of golden light behind them. Duck Juan held a thin, tattered wallet in his hands, wrapped in cloth and tied with a broken shoelace. He untied it. Inside was a black and white photo. 3 people stood together, a mother, a father, and a young boy with sharp eyes and a solemn face. That's me, he said. Seoul, 2002. My parents owned a tech company. I was an only child. Ava stared at the photo. You were rich. He gave a crooked smile. I was lost, same as you. She looked at him then. Really looked. His posture, his edge, his command. You've built everything here, she said. And you've never tried to go back? Duck Juan stared at the stars. His voice was quieter than the wind. I didn't know how to get back. And over time, I stopped wanting to. He reached into his tunic and pulled something small and folded. A fragile scrap of paper, edges worn with years. He handed it to her. Ava unfolded it slowly. It was a child's sketch of a girl. Pigtails, bright eyes, curly hair, hands drawn like fists on her hips. I met her when I was 8, Duck Juan said softly, in Chicago. My father took me there for half a year while he built his company's branch. I didn't speak English well. The other kids laughed at me, pushed me around. He paused, eyes far away. And then one girl stepped between us. She said, his lips curved faintly, pick on someone your own size. She was smaller than all of them, but they backed off. Ava blinked, her throat tightened. That looks like, she whispered. You, he finished. She didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice trembled. I don't remember you. Duck Juan smiled faintly, not hurt. Maybe you weren't supposed to, but I remembered. I carried it. Maybe I was always meant to find you again. That night, Duck Juan watched her from the shadows as she sparred with the guard under the moonlight. Her sword clanged, her hair flying, her steps exact. She wasn't just surviving, she was rising. General Ava Lilly, he whispered to himself, a quiet reverence in his voice. The woman the stars couldn't kill. During sword practice one evening, Ava slips, nearly falling. Duck Juan catches her, his hand pressed against her back, their faces inches apart. She smirks to cover the tension. Careful! If you drop me, I'll haunt you. If I drop you, there's no me left to haunt, he whispered. They pull apart too fast, both rattled. They weren't just drawn to each other by fate. They were written into each other's story long before they knew how to read it. During a skirmish, Duck Juan shields Ava from an incoming strike. She kills the attacker in return. They collapse back to back, gasping, swords dripping. He whispers raw, if you had fallen just now, I would have burned this world. Then be glad I'm stubborn enough not to. The thunder of hooves and the gleam of steel had become Ava Lilly's daily rhythm. Her body bore scars now, some fresh, some healed. But her eyes had never been clearer. They called her the General of the Stars now. She didn't ask for it, but she earned it. 3 provinces had been reclaimed under her command. 2 sieges broken. 1 brutal raid led at night, through mud and fog that saved the kingdom's eastern border from collapse. The men followed her not out of awe, but out of trust. She was no longer the woman who'd fallen into their world. She was the reason it still stood. One day, the camp was restless. Soldiers whispered about Ava's victories, but also about the scandal of her presence. She had made the empire stronger, yet every triumph deepened the nobles' resentment. Ava trained alone after the war council, slashing her sword through the air with sharp, angry movements. Sweat slicked her brow. Duck Juan appeared silently, leaning on the post. You fight like you're punishing the air. She shot him a glare. The air doesn't talk behind my back. He stepped into the torchlight. The nobles don't know how to name you. Woman, foreigner, general. So they call you all of them at once. Ava lowered her blade, breathing hard. And what do you call me? He walked closer, his voice low. The only reason I still have a kingdom to call my own. Her lips parted, but before she could speak, a horn blared from the watchtower. An ambush at the southern barricade. Ava didn't wait for orders. She sprinted ahead, leading a small squad of soldiers. She fought brutally, striking down attackers with precision Duck Juan had taught her. When reinforcements arrived, the enemy scattered, but Ava's shoulder was cut deep, her tunic soaked red. Duck Juan stormed into the smoke, sword dripping. His eyes found her first. You could have died, he said, voice like steel. Ava wiped blood from her face. We all could have. Later that night, Ava struggles to bind her wound. Duck Juan kneels to wrap it himself. His hands linger too long. She whispers, You shouldn't care this much. I don't know how not to, he said without hesitation. They lock eyes. She looks away, flustered. He doesn't. Hours later, she stood alone on the stone balcony, the city lights below flickering like embers. Duck Juan found her there, his expression a storm. You're more than a general now, he said. She tilted her head, exhausted but still sharp. Is that a promotion or a proposal? His lips twitched, not with humor, but with pain. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small ring of black iron, crude but unmistakable. Ava froze. Duck Juan. He stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. It's not safe for you anymore. The nobles resent you. The people don't understand you. If you wore this, he swallowed, voice cracking. They'd think twice. Her chest rose, sharp and unsteady. Because I'd be yours? He shook his head, stepping closer until the shadows swallowed them both. Yes, he whispered, because you'd be mine. She stared at him for a long, aching moment. Her hands trembled. Then, slowly, deliberately, she took the ring. She walked to the fire pit at the center of the balcony, held it above the flames, and dropped it. The iron hissed and vanished into sparks. She turned back to him, tears in her eyes. I don't need a ring to survive, she whispered, and I won't be married to save face. He swallowed hard, eyes wet. That's not why I asked. I know. Her voice cracked, softer now, but it's still not why I'd say yes. She brushed past him, her shoulder grazing his. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, and Duck Juan stood alone in the torchlight, the ashes of his hope glowing behind him. General Han and Dong Ho. The war chamber was thick with incense and smoke. Maps littered the table, weighted with daggers. Dong Ho stood stiff, jaw clenched, his fury rising like a tide. 4 provinces, father. 4. And still, the people whisper about him, about Duck Juan, about the woman. General Han, scarred and cold as stone, leaned on the table. His eyes gleamed with calculation. You are their rightful heir, he said. Not him. Never him. Dong Ho snapped his head up. He wears the seal of succession, Han sneered. A seal can be forged. Lies can be written in royal ink. Do you think your uncle, that weakling emperor, ever wanted Duck Juan to rule? Number. He was forced, manipulated. He stepped closer, voice a venomous whisper. Duck Juan was never meant to be king. His blood is tainted. He is illegitimate. A fraud. Dong Ho's fist trembled. Then why does the court still hesitate? Han's lips curled. Because of her. Ava Lily. Dongho spat the name like poison. She makes him stronger. She blinds the nobles with her victories. But she is not of this world. She does not belong. If she falls, he falls with her. Han straightened, his voice low and final. Let me be the hand that proves it. The next morning, a dagger gleamed in the sunlight, embedded in the pillar of the royal court. Tied to it was a scroll, written in heavy black ink. Trial by combat. General Han of the Crown's Legion versus General Ava Lily of the Stars. Public arena. Noon. Ava read it twice, then handed it to Duck Huan. He didn't even flinch. No. She crossed her arms. This is the only way to shut them up. They want you dead. Then let them try. Duck Huan paced like a storm, hands clenched, eyes burning. Han is not some jealous noble. He survived 20 campaigns. He's a monster. He kills for pride. And I've survived more, she said softly but firmly. He spun toward her, his voice cracking. This isn't about a duel anymore. It's about politics, optics. If you lose, they'll call you weak. If you win, they'll call me worse. His jaw trembled. They already call you a curse. Ava stepped closer, fire in her eyes. Then let me be a curse they can't kill. The arena was carved into the cliffside, open to the clouds and the murmuring of 1,000 voices. Nobles leaned from stone balconies, servants pressed against the walls, soldiers filled the terraces. The air was sharp with the smell of iron and incense. Ava stood in the center. Only a battle armor bound her frame, her curls in a bun, her hands gripping the blade Duck Huan had forged for her months ago. Its steel gleamed under the sun, familiar, comforting. She didn't look at the crowd, only at him. Duck Huan was in the stands, not as a prince, not as a sovereign, but as a man ready to break every law, every oath, every tradition, if she faltered. His eyes never left her. His hand never left the hilt of his sword. Across from her, General Han entered. His armor was scarred, his body carved by decades of war. The ground seemed to quake beneath his boots. He sneered as he drew his blade, long and heavy, dragging sparks across the stone. You don't belong here, he spat. One duel and your spell will break. Ava raised her chin. Then try to break it. The gong struck. Han lunged first, a blur of steel and fury. His blade crashed against hers, the force rattling through her bones. She barely caught the second strike, her knees buckling under the weight. The crowd roared. Han laughed, cruel. Is this your heaven-born strength? She gritted her teeth and countered, darting to the side, fast as lightning. Her blade cut his shoulder, shallow, but it drew blood. His smile vanished. The duel became savage. Han fought with brute strength, swinging wide, crushing, relentless. Ava fought with precision, speed, and every hour of training Duck Huan had carved into her bones. Twice he threw her. She rolled hard against the stone, coughing blood, but rose again. 3 times, her sword nearly flew from her hands, her palms burning. Duck Huan stood in the gallery, his body trembling with restraint. If she fell again, he would leap into the arena, crown be damned. Then it happened. Han raised his blade for a killing blow. Arrogant, certain. Ava's eyes flashed. She shifted her grip. One fluid movement. A twist, a pivot, a strike no one had taught her, but her own instincts. Han's blade clattered across the arena. The silence was deafening. Ava pressed her sword to his throat, her chest heaving. Sweat dripped into her eyes, her body shaking from exhaustion, but her voice was steady. I don't need to kill you, she whispered. Gasps rippled. Han's face twisted, veins bulging with rage and shame. "But I need to die." He staggered to his feet, eyes burning with something darker than defeat. He turned from her, walked to the edge of the arena, and before anyone could stop him, threw himself over. The scream of the wind swallowed him whole. Gasps, cries, silence. And then, a roar of scandal. Nobles shouted curses, women wailed, men muttered in fear. Witch from the stars. She drove him to death. A curse on the kingdom. Within hours, her name was painted in whispers across every hall, written in blood on the lips of the provinces. The High Court demanded an inquiry. The provinces loyal to Han threatened rebellion. Even the palace guard looked at her with doubt. Ava Lily had won the duel, but she had lost the kingdom's trust. After the duel, the arena was empty now, the crowd gone, the blood still staining the stone. Ava sat alone in the shadow of the gate, her blade across her knees. Her hands shook, her body sore, her heart heavy. She had won, but she did not feel victorious. The echo of Han's body hitting the rocks below still rang in her ears. Footsteps approached, fast, uneven, furious. "Duck Juan!" He pushed through the guards without a word, his robes torn from where he had clawed at the railings, trying to leap down during the fight. His eyes burned with something darker than anger. He stopped in front of her. For a moment, he just stared, chest heaving. "You were supposed to let me protect you." His voice cracked, raw and low. Ava looked up, sweat and blood streaking her face. And what would that have proved? That I needed a prince to fight my battles? "This wasn't your battle," he exploded, fists clenching at his sides. "It was theirs. Politics. Optics. Their venom. And they threw you into it because they wanted you dead." Her voice was softer now, but steady. "And yet, I'm still here." He dropped to his knees before her, grabbing her wrists, his grip trembling. "Barely. Do you know what it did to me? Watching you fall? Watching his blade at your throat? I would have burned this kingdom to ashes if you hadn't risen." Her eyes softened. She released her sword and touched his face, brushing her thumb along his jaw. "But you didn't need to." "Because I rose." Tears shimmered in his eyes. He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice a whisper now, for her alone. "They call you a curse. Then let me be your curse," she murmured back. "Because nothing, no court, no crown, no name they give me, will make me leave your side." He closed his eyes, a shudder running through him, and pulled her into his arms. Around them, the torches guttered in the cold wind. The kingdom whispered of scandal and witchcraft. But in that moment, Duck Juan held her like she was the only truth he had left. The High Court convened 3 days after the duel. The council chamber smelled of cedar and old parchment. Stone pillars rose like judges around the circle, and at its center, Duck Juan sat upon the heir's seat. Ava stood behind him. No armor, no sword, just her presence, calm and unyielding, though whispers cut her like blades. The lords of the provinces filled the benches, their silken robes swishing as they leaned to mutter, "Witch, curse, she drove Han to death." One lord rose, his voice sharp as steel. "We demand an inquiry. A woman not of this land, not of this blood, now holds the rank of general. She has humiliated our greatest commander and left our provinces leaderless. If this court does not act, rebellion will be our answer." Murmurs of agreement thundered through the chamber. Another lord spat, "Exile her! Banish her beyond the mountains. Let her poison no more of this realm." A third sneered, "Or burn her. Let the heavens see we do not keep curses in our house." Duck Juan rose slowly. The room silenced. He walked to the center, the weight of the crown not yet on his brow but already on his shoulders. His eyes swept across the chamber. Nobles, generals, priests. Then he turned, just enough to let his gaze fall on Ava. And when he spoke, his voice carried like thunder. "You call her a curse?" The words cracked through the air. "You forget it was her hand that drove back Dong Ho's raiders when you cowered behind your walls. You forget it was her command that turned starving peasants into soldiers when your banners fell. You forget it was her courage that gave me breath when this kingdom tried to choke me." His fist slammed against the table. "You forget. Without her, this court would be ash." Gasps rippled. A priest stammered, "She is not of our world." "And neither am I," Duck Juan roared. The chamber froze. Ava's eyes widened. Duck Juan's voice dropped, trembling with conviction. "I was not born of your soil. My blood is not yours. And yet I have bled for this kingdom. If you would exile her, then exile me. If you would burn her, then burn me too. But know this." He turned fully now, his hand lifting to rest over Ava's. "She is my general, my vow, my sovereign." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Some nobles lowered their eyes. Others clenched their fists in fury. The high court did not speak of exile again, but in the dark corridors beyond the chamber, whispers sharpened into daggers. If the court could not take Ava from Duck Juan, then Dong Ho would. The fortress halls shook with drunken laughter and the clatter of goblets. Generals lounged at the long table, their hands sticky with wine and roasted meat, their voices slurred with boasts of conquest. But when the messenger stumbled in, bloodied, dust still clinging to his cloak, the laughter died. He fell to his knees before Dong Ho. "My lord, the high court, they did not exile her. Duck Juan declared her his sovereign before them all." Silence. Dong Ho sat motionless at the head of the table, his goblet halfway to his lips. Slowly, deliberately, he set it down. "She still lives?" His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Yes, my lord. He swore he would burn with her rather than see her cast out." The general shifted nervously. Dong Ho's knuckles whitened around the goblet. Then, with a sudden roar, he hurled it across the hall. It shattered against the stone, splattering red wine like blood. "Enough!" He surged to his feet, his cloak whipping behind him, his face twisted with fury. All this time, every raid, every province, every drop of blood, and still that bastard dares to stand against me? He turned, pacing like a caged beast, his voice trembling with venom. "She took my father's life, and now she has taken my name, stolen it from history, burned it into whispers, painted herself as the warrior queen of my kingdom." His eyes blazed, catching the torchlight. "No more." He slammed his hand onto the map table, rattling daggers and cups. "Gather every man, every horse, every province that still fears my banner. I want them all." A general hesitated. "My lord?" "Such a campaign would mean total war. The people will suffer. The land." Dong Ho drew his blade in one fluid movement and pressed it to the man's throat. "The land is mine." His voice dropped to a growl. "The people are mine. And when she burns, the world will know there is only one sovereign in this kingdom." He sheathed the sword, his rage boiling into cold calculation. "Tell them," he ordered, his voice calm now. "Tell them I will not stop until Ava Lily lies in the dirt and Duck Juan kneels before me." He looked out the window at the horizon, where smoke from his camp stained the sky. "Tomorrow, the sky will turn red again, not from a blood moon." His lips curled into a cruel smile. "From war?" 2 days later. The woods beyond the capital glowed faintly under the red haze of the blood moon. The leaves seemed to hold their breath. Even the wind dared not move. Ava stood in the clearing. She could still hear the whispers that haunted the streets. Witch, curse, usurper. But when Duck Juan stepped into the clearing, she forgot all of them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them, raw, fragile, alive. Then, slowly, he went down on one knee. No crown, no throne, no court to bear witness, just him. Her heart lurched. Duck Juan! His voice was low, trembling, stripped bare. I can't protect you from them anymore. The nobles, the people, even the sky seems to curse your name. His hand fisted against his chest, as if holding back the storm inside him. But I can stand with you. Not as a prince, not as a general. He lifted his head. His eyes burned. But as a man who chooses you. Always you. Ava's breath hitched. Her throat burned. They'll destroy us, she whispered, her voice unsteady. Duck Juan rose to his feet and closed the distance between them until there was nothing between his heartbeat and hers. His hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. They'll try, he said, but let them try against an emperor and his sovereign. The word sovereign left his lips not like a title, but like a vow, a name meant only for her. Ava's knees weakened. Duck Juan. He leaned his forehead against hers. The warmth of him, the steadiness, broke something open in her. You aren't my scandal, he whispered. You aren't my shame. You are my kingdom, my answer, my sovereign. Her tears spilled freely now, but her smile trembled with them. She wrapped her fingers around his hand, squeezing tight. Then let them come, she whispered. Let them all come. Because I will fight beside you until the end. The blood moon burned above them. The forest stood still. No court, no crown, no scroll. Just two people, raw and trembling, daring to love. Duck Juan's hand shook as he held hers. He didn't hide it. Ava Lily, he said, his voice rough with all the battles he'd fought. You fell from the sky and ruined every plan I ever made. I was content to die fighting for a throne I barely wanted. But you taught me that some things are worth more than thrones. His thumb traced the scars on her knuckles. His gaze never wavered. You are my general, my anchor, my fire. If the world calls you a curse, let them choke on their words. Because I call you my sovereign, and I vow this. I will spend every breath, every battle, every tomorrow at your side, until the stars themselves burn out. Ava's tears fell freely now. She had never let anyone see her this undone. But with him, she didn't need to be steel. She could be herself. Her voice trembled, but her grip on his hand was unyielding. Duck Juan, you gave me more than survival. You gave me a place. You made me more than an outsider, more than a soldier. You made me believe that I wasn't lost. I was found. She stepped closer, her forehead against his, her words a whisper only he would ever hear. I vow this. If the world rises against you, it rises against me. If they call you emperor, they call me sovereign. I am not your shadow. I am your equal, and I will fight with you, bleed with you, and love you until time itself lets us rest. Duck Juan's breath shook as he exhaled, pulling her into his chest. He kissed the crown of her head, whispering his final vow into her hair. Let history fear you. Let kingdoms despise you. Let the sky turn red. None of it matters. He tilted her chin up, his lips brushing hers. You are mine, and I am yours, forever. And with that kiss, under the blood moon, under the weight of two worlds, they sealed their real coronation. The vows were sealed in whispers and in a kiss that bent the heavens, but the blood moon above them glared like a scar. By morning, the world had already decided what it meant. Messengers spread tales faster than fire. The sky turned red because a foreign witch bewitched the prince. She made him kneel as if he were her servant. A curse has entered the royal bloodline. Noblemen spat her name like venom. Priests muttered omens in hushed tones. Mothers clutched their children when Ava walked past. Everywhere she went, she felt it. The weight of stares, the burn of whispers. Witch! Usurper! Curse! Ava stood on the balcony of her chambers, hands gripping the stone rail until her knuckles whitened. The city stretched below, banners flapping in the wind, drums echoing faintly from distant garrisons. Her chest ached, not from fear, but from anger. She heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. "They hate me," she whispered. Duck Juan stepped up beside her, his presence calm but burning like a shield. "They fear what they don't understand. They'll call you weak. Then let them." His voice sharpened. "I would rather be weak with you than strong without you." Finally she turned, eyes wet. "I don't want to be your ruin." Duck Juan cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You're not my ruin, Ava Lily." His voice shook with conviction. "You're the reason I'm still standing." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Let them curse the sky. Let them curse me. They will never know the truth." Her lips trembled. "And what truth is that?" "That last night, beneath a blood moon, I crowned you." That night, the priest had declared, "The moon turns red when kings are taken." But in the shadows of the forest where their vows still echoed, another truth burned brighter. He hadn't been taken. He had chosen her. And while the world branded her a curse, he had already sealed her as something else entirely, his sovereign. Ava stood taller the next day in the war council chamber. Every noble sneer only hardened her resolve. She didn't bow. She didn't break. Because in her heart, she wasn't waiting for a crown to prove her worth. She already wore one, placed there by the only man whose choice mattered. Days later, the night was too still. Ava stood at the edge of Duck Juan's private war tent, her armor half buckled, hair wet with the storm's early drizzle. The wind curled around them like a warning. She knew something was wrong. "I'll lead the southern charge," she said. Duck Juan didn't respond. He only looked at her. There was that look again, that grief hiding behind restraint, the kind that made her heart thump with dread. "Duck Juan," she whispered. He walked over slowly, pressed his forehead to hers. "I need you alive," he said, voice shaking, her brows furrowed. "Then let me fight." His jaw clenched. "No." She shoved him back slightly, voice rising. "You taught me how to lead. To survive. You made me your general. Don't you dare bench me now because I love you," he snapped. The words hung in the air like lightning about to strike. "I love you, Ava. I've watched you bleed for this empire, win battles men twice your size couldn't. But this war, Dong-ho doesn't want the crown anymore. He wants you. Dead. And I'm not afraid of him." "I am!" Duck Juan's voice cracked. She stepped back, trembling. "I won't sit in hiding while you die. You won't have a choice." Duck Juan had not slept for 3 nights. He sat at the head of the war table, candles burning down to stubs, maps torn and ink bleeding where his fist had slammed too hard. His generals argued about strategy, about where to strike Dong-ho's forces next, but Duck Juan heard nothing. All he saw was Ava, in the courtyard, sparring at dawn, on the battlefield, laughing with blood on her cheek, kneeling beside him beneath the red moon. She was his equal, his sovereign, his fire, and that was why she couldn't stay. "Your Highness," Commander Jin murmured, stepping closer once the others had left. He was Duck Hwan's most loyal, his brother in every way but blood. "You've already decided, haven't you?" Duck Hwan's jaw tightened. "She'll never agree to it." "Not while she still breathes." "Then how?" Duck Hwan pressed both hands to the table, leaning forward as though the weight of his choice was breaking his spine. "We don't ask. We do it. Tonight?" Jin hesitated. "She will hate you." Duck Hwan's voice broke. "As long as she lives, she can hate me forever." That evening, Ava stormed into his tent, her armor still streaked from drills. "They're moving closer," she snapped, throwing a bloodied map onto the table. "We need to cut across the river and strike before—" He crossed the space and cupped her face. The sudden tenderness silenced her. "Ava," he whispered. Her eyes softened just for a moment. "Duck Hwan, what?" "Forgive me." Before she could react, he kissed her. Fierce, desperate, final. And as her lips parted to answer, her body went weak. The tea she drunk earlier, pressed into her hands by a guard she trusted, was laced with a sleeping draft. Her last memory was Duck Hwan's trembling mouth against hers, and his voice breaking against her ear. "I would rather you hate me alive than love me dead." The world swam when she opened her eyes. Her sword was gone, her armor stripped, her body sluggish, heavy. She staggered upright, nearly collapsing, until a man stepped forward, one of Duck Hwan's elite. "General," he said quickly, raising both hands, "please don't rise yet." Her instincts blazed. In seconds, she had slammed him against the wall, the blade ripped from his own belt pressed to his throat. "Where is he?" she hissed. The soldier didn't fight her. His eyes were sad. "He sent you here to live." She saw her satchel tucked neatly in the corner of the tent. Her fingers tore it open, pulling out a folded parchment sealed with the prince's crest. Her breath shook as she read, "Ava, I don't know how this ends, but if you die, there's no point in me surviving. You once told me you didn't fall into this world to be protected like a relic. I believe you, but I also didn't survive this world just to bury you in it. So if I never see you again, know this, I died already the day I sent you away." Duck Hwan. Something small and cold slipped out from the letter. A ring, not from this kingdom, a simple gold band. Worn, plain. Her breath caught. Not forged in fire, not carved in secret, but modern. The kind you'd find in a department store. Her eyes widened. He was telling the truth. All of it. He is really not from this world. Ava spent her first day in exile sobbing into her knees. The war drums echoed faintly from the north, and every beat was a dagger. Duck Hwan was out there, bleeding, fighting, possibly dying. And she was here, safe, protected, imprisoned. The more she thought of it, the more her chest burned. She remembered his trembling kiss, his whisper of "forgive me," the way his eyes had begged her to live. She understood his choice, but she hated him for it. By nightfall, her cheeks were raw with tears, her throat hoarse from screaming his name into the dark. The second day, her grief hardened into fury. She sharpened her sword until sparks flew. When the guards tried to block her from leaving, she dropped 3 of them in the dirt with her bare fists. Her knuckles split. Her blood stained the ground. By the 3rd day, she stood in the center of the camp, her face streaked with dirt and fury, her voice a storm. "You were ordered to keep me safe. she told Duck Juan's elite, a dozen hardened men who had sworn loyalty to their prince. Her eyes blazed. But if you don't take me back to him, if you don't let me fight beside the man I love, then I swear by every god you worship, I'll bury you all myself. Silence. Then Commander Jin stepped forward, jaw tight. You'll be the death of him. Ava's chest heaved. No, I'll be the life that keeps him standing. The men looked at her, saw the fire in her eyes, the sovereign their prince had named in secret and in the open. And one by one, they lowered their heads. They rode north. But when they reached the province, it was already burning. The screams of villagers split the air. Dong Ho's soldiers had come not for land, but for bait. They wanted her dragged back in pieces. Ava's heart clenched. Duck Juan! I hope you are okay, she murmured to herself. She didn't flinch. She unsheathed her sword and charged. The counterstrike was chaos. She led not like a commander, but like a storm. A heavy black battle robe whipped around her like wings, its crimson lining flashing in the firelight, her blade cutting arcs of steel through the fire-lit smoke. She did not hesitate. She did not falter. She annihilated. Women seized farm tools and turned them into weapons. Wounded men crawled from beds and gripped spears. Even children dragged the injured to safety while Ava shouted orders above the roar. Form the line! Protect the flank! Burn the barricade now! Her command was precise, fearless, feral, and it worked. The enemy scattered. The villagers stared at her, wide-eyed, bloodied, trembling. But instead of fear, their voices rose in one ragged cry. It's her! Someone whispered. The one from the stars. Another voice rose, shaky at first, then fierce. The Scarlet General! The cry caught like wildfire. The Scarlet General! The Scarlet General! Soon 1,000 voices roared her name. In the shadows of the ridge, nobles watching from afar hissed to one another, their faces pale. She cannot be killed. She returns like the Omen. She is not a general. She is the Black Star. The whisper spread faster than arrows. Ava Lily was no longer just a woman who had fallen from another world. She was a legend, a general feared in daylight and a star from the sky. Word spread faster than arrows. General Ava Lily, exiled, written off as dead, had returned. And she wasn't just one woman. She was bringing war. She stood at the head of her ragtag host, villagers, guards, women, cast-offs, survivors, her cloak torn, her blade dripping. Her chest ached with longing, but her voice was iron. Duck Juan, hold on, she whispered into the wind. Your sovereign is coming. The battlefield was smoke and steel, screams and prayers. Duck Juan stood at the center, his blade heavy in his hands, his armor cracked and bloodied. His men still fought, but the tide was shifting against them, and inside him, a war of his own. Every time he raised his sword, he saw her face. Every time he struck down an enemy, he heard her voice. Forgive me. The last words he had whispered against her lips before the draft stole her strength. Forgive me for sending you away. Forgive me for choosing your life over your love. She hated him now. He knew it. But at least she lived. That was enough. Or so he told himself as he fought like a man already gone. And when the lines began to break, when Dong Ho's forces surged forward to crush him once and for all, the dust shifted, a horn blared, and thunder roared across the field. And then the dust shifted, hooves thundered across the field. A black war horse tore through the smoke, its mane flying like fire. On its back, Ava, her blade raised. her hair a wild banner, her eyes blazing with fury and love. And behind her, not nobles, not seasoned soldiers, but the army she had built from ashes. The women who had lost husbands, the wounded who refused to die quietly, the farmers, the smiths, the forgotten. Her army, her rebellion, her legend. The crimson path. The field froze. Men from both sides turned, stunned, as if the earth itself had birthed a storm in their midst. Duck Juan staggered, chest heaving, his sword lowering. His eyes widened. "Ava," he whispered, the word breaking in his throat. And for the first time in weeks, hope surged through his blood. She dismounted in a storm of steel, pushing through the chaos until she was in front of him. He caught her by the shoulders as if to make sure she was flesh and not a hallucination. His voice was ragged, broken. "I sent you away to protect you," he gasped. "But every day without you, I was dying. Forgive me." Her eyes burned, wet with rage and relief. "You don't get to choose where I live or die, Duck Juan," she shouted over the clash of blades, her hand fisted in his collar, dragging him close. "If you think I'll let you fight this war alone, then you've learned nothing about me." His hand trembled against her cheek, relief and devastation colliding. "You're here." Her tears spilled, hot and unstoppable. "I missed you every breath," she whispered, "every heartbeat, and I swore I'd never let you fight alone." And then she kissed him, hard, fierce, desperate, not sweet, not gentle, but like two warriors claiming each other in the middle of war, like two souls who had clawed their way through fire to meet again. Around them, men stared, awed, confused, afraid. The prince who had sent away his general, the general who had defied the stars to return, and now, together, unbreakable. Duck Juan broke the kiss, his hand cradling her face, his voice raw. "Then let's end this together, sovereign and emperor, until the last sword falls." Ava's lips curved, her tears glittering like firelight. "Side by side," she said. She lifted her blade. He raised his, and with a roar, their armies surged forward as one. The storm had come, and its name was love. Side by side, they fought through Dong Ho's army. The battlefield was fire. Steel rang against steel. Arrows cut the sky. The ground churned with blood and ash. But at the center, two figures carved a path through chaos, as if destiny itself had handed them the blades. Side by side, Ava Lily and Duck Juan fought. Every slash of her blade was a declaration. Every strike of his sword was an oath. Every time he faltered, her fury steadied him. Every time she bled, his roar turned the tide. They weren't two generals. They weren't even sovereign and emperor. They were one. Dong Ho saw it, and it drove him mad. Arrogant, snarling, frothing with rage, he shoved aside his guards and charged toward them like a beast unchained. His sword dripped red, his armor cracked, but his pride blazed hotter than fire. "You," he bellowed, eyes fixed on Ava, "you are the reason my kingdom fell. A foreign witch who brought chaos." Ava turned, her blade snapping up to block his first blow. A spark sprayed between them. "You fell because you were a coward," she said, her voice calm, deadly, every word a blade sharper than steel. Their swords clashed like thunder. Dong Ho's strikes were brutal, wild, desperate. Ava's movements were precise, honed, unstoppable. He swung again, screaming, "Everything was mine!" She twisted, dodged, and slammed her sword across his side, sending him stumbling. "The throne was never yours!" she spat. Duck Juan roared. charging forward. Together, he and Ava pressed him, blades moving like storm and fire. Dong-ho lunged at Ava one last time, his eyes burning with hatred, his blade aimed for her heart. And that was when Duck Hwan moved. With a cry that split the sky, he hurled his sword through the smoke. It struck deep into Dong-ho's chest. The arrogant cousin staggered, choking, gasping her name like a curse. His eyes burned with fury even as the light left them. And then he fell. The earth itself seemed to sigh as he struck the ground. Dong-ho, the usurper, the tyrant, the liar, dead. Silence swept the battlefield like a tide. The last arrow flew. The last sword fell. And then a roar rose from the loyal soldiers who still stood. Cheers, cries, disbelief turned into triumph. But Duck Hwan barely heard them. The weight of the battle, the years of betrayal, the blood, the scars, all of it crashed onto his shoulders. He dropped to one knee. Ava was there before he hit the dirt. She caught him, her arms strong, her eyes wet. Their foreheads touched. They didn't speak. There was nothing to say. They had survived, not as a prince and general, not even as emperor and sovereign, but as two souls who had fought as one. The kingdom cheered for her. The nobles feared her. The soldiers followed her. But Ava Lily hadn't just saved the empire. She had become the empire, the storm, the rebellion, the legend, the sovereign. It should have felt like victory. The palace gates thrown open, children scattering petals through the cobblestone streets, bells ringing from every temple. But Duck Hwan felt only the weight of absence, not the absence of a throne, but of words left unsaid. They hadn't spoken since the battlefield, not truly. Every time his gaze sought her, hers slid away. Every time his hand twitched to reach for hers, she clasped it behind her back. They had fought side by side, bled side by side, survived side by side. But survival was not the same as wholeness. That night, long after the war council dismissed and the palace grew quiet, he found her alone. Ava stood in the palace garden, by the reflecting pool. Lantern light rippled across her face. Her hair was loose, wild against the silk of her silver robe. She did not turn when he approached. "You should be resting," she said softly. "I can't," he answered. "Not without you." She finally looked at him, really looked. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but they gleamed with something deeper. "You sent me away," she whispered. He flinched. "To keep you alive. And I hated you for it." "I hated me too," he said, stepping closer, his voice breaking. "Every day without you was a slow death." Ava's lip trembled. She looked away, blinking hard, but a tear slid down her cheek anyway. Duck Hwan reached out, thumb brushing it away. "I need you to know," he whispered, "that I never stopped missing you. Every hour, every breath, every prayer of that war was haunted by you." Her breath shuddered. She pressed her forehead to his chest, her hands curling into his robe as if she couldn't hold herself up anymore. "I thought I'd never see you again," she admitted, her voice muffled. "I thought you'd die believing I hated you." He cupped the back of her head, holding her against him. "You could hate me for 1,000 years, he murmured, "and I'd still choose you." Every time. They stood like that for a long time. No swords, no crowns, no army, just two broken people finding each other in the silence after the storm. The next night, beneath the blood moon, the world demanded ceremony. But they demanded each other. Ava refused the jeweled headpiece, shaking her head. "I don't want gold in my hair," she said, taking his hands. Her voice wavered, tender and fierce, all at once. I just want your name in my heart. Duckwan's smile was small, raw, and real. Then you'll have both. As the priest asked his question, Duckwan's eyes never left hers. Do you come willingly? His voice rang steady. Sure, with everything I am. And you, Ava Lily of Chicago, do you come willingly? Her eyes shimmered, her lips curved. I came through time, through fire, through war, she said. Her voice caught, and still, I choose you. So yes, I come willingly. When they kissed beneath the blood moon, the earth shook. But for once, they didn't feel the tremor, because the war was behind them. The throne was beneath them, and the only thing that remained were each other. The wedding feast had ended hours ago. The nobles drunk, the soldiers sprawled, the fires dimming. But Ava and Duckwan had slipped away. They were not in the throne room, not in the gardens, not under a priest's gaze. They were where they belonged, together, in the palace orchard, beneath a canopy of plum blossoms that swayed gently in the night breeze. Lanterns dangled from branches, their soft glow painting Ava's skin in gold. She sat on a stone bench, her silver robe loose at her shoulders, her curls tumbling down. Duckwan knelt in the grass before her, his hands resting over hers, as though he never meant to let them go. It was quiet, intimate, real. Finally, no war, no crown, no whispers, just them. You look tired, Ava murmured, brushing his hair back with trembling fingers. I am, he admitted, but only because I can't stop looking at you. She laughed softly, her forehead dropping against his. You're terrible. And yours, he said simply. She kissed him then, slowly, tenderly. The kiss of a woman who had survived fire and blood, only to find peace in the arms of the man she loved. For the first time in months, Ava felt safe. She closed her eyes, let herself breathe, let herself believe this moment would last. And then, the ground shifted. At first, just a tremor beneath the roots of the orchard. A soft quake, but then the air thickened. The wind stopped. The blossoms froze in a mid-sway, petals suspended in the air like glass. Ava's eyes flew open. Duckwan, she whispered. He gripped her hands, pulled her to her feet, holding her against him. I'm here, he said, but his voice already sounded. Far away, too far. The torches lining the orchard flickered out, one by one. The stars above blinked, then vanished. Gasps echoed from the guards at the palace wall. A hush fell over the entire courtyard as the sky turned a violent shade of violet. A gust tore through the orchard, blossoms scattering like shards of light. The very air bent. Reality itself split. Duckwan crushed her against his chest, his lips at her ear. I won't let you go. Her tears spilled instantly. No, please, not now, not tonight. Light bent around them, their bodies glowing as if the universe had chosen this one moment to steal them away. Ava clung to him with all her strength. Duckwan! He pressed his lips to her hair, whispering the last vow he could give her. I'll find you. Across worlds. Across time. I'll find you. And then they vanished. The orchard stood empty. Petals drifted down onto the stone bench where they had just been. The wind returned, carrying only silence. Ava woke on concrete. The sound of tires screeching, city horns, and blinding sunlight. She blinked rapidly. Her gown was gone. She was in jeans, a hoodie, her modern body, her modern hands. A Korean museum security guard rushed toward her. Miss, are you okay? She sat up slowly. Her voice cracked. Where? You passed out, the woman said. You're lucky. The floor collapsed during the blackout last night. You were the only one in the lower chamber. Ava turned her head. No sword, no fireflies, no blood moon. She touched her chest. No ring, no Duck Juan. Meanwhile, the world exploded in light. Duck Juan gasped, the orchard torn away, Ava ripped from his arms, and then he opened his eyes to chaos. Flashbulbs, sirens, shouts. The leather of a car seat pressed against his palms, the hum of an engine beneath him. A black Mercedes sped through neon-lit streets. The air reeked of exhaust and perfume. Towers of glass and steel clawed at the sky, covered in screens flashing advertisements. Soul, modern soul. He blinked, disoriented, armor gone, robes replaced with a fitted black suit. His hands trembled against the window as his reflection stared back at him. Older than the boy who vanished, younger than the man who had ruled. A man in a suit barked into a headset beside him. Yes, sir, we've confirmed it. The heir has returned. 16 years missing? Yes, notify the chairman immediately. The driver's voice broke. Young master, you're alive. A news alert blared across the limo's screen. Breaking. Lost heir of Juantec appears after years, presumed dead. Duck Juan's pulse roared in his ears. Lost heir? 16 years? The car screeched to a halt. The back door flew open. And there, on the curb, stood a man with trembling hands. His hair was gray now, his posture bent with age, but his eyes were the same. Duck Juan. His father's voice cracked, tears sliding down his weathered face. My son. The cameras flashed. Reporters screamed. Guards formed a wall. But Duck Juan didn't hear them, didn't move toward the man who had created him, the company that had owned him. He stepped out of the car, blinded by the storm of lights, overwhelmed by the crush of voices. The world recognized him, claimed him, crowned him with a name he barely remembered. Later that night, behind locked doors and heavy curtains, father and son sat across from each other in the chairman's private study. The old man's hands shook as he poured tea, but neither of them touched it. You were gone for 16 years, his father said, his voice hoarse. 16 years, and not a word. Do you know what that did to me? To this family? To this company? Duck Juan stared at the table. He had faced arrows and steel without flinching, but the weight of his father's voice was heavier than any war. I know, he whispered. Then tell me, his father pressed, leaning forward, his eyes burning. Where were you? Who took you? How did you survive? Duck Juan's lips parted, then closed again. He thought of Ava's laughter, of the blood moon vows, of the weight of her hand gripping his as the orchard tore them apart. He thought of fire and war, of a kingdom lost to time, of a life he could never explain. No one took me, he said finally. His voice was low, even. I was lost, and I found my way back. His father slammed a hand on the table. That's not an answer! Duck Juan met his gaze, steady, unreadable. It's the only one I can give you. Silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. His father sank back in his chair, chest heaving, tears pooling in the corners of his eyes. You don't understand. I mourned you. Every day. I buried my son 1,000 times, and now you sit here, and I don't even know who you are anymore. Duck Juan swallowed hard. He wanted to say, I'm still your son. I fought for a throne. I loved a queen. I lived a lifetime you'll never know. But instead, he only bowed his head. I'm here now, he said softly. That's all I can give you. Ava Lilly hadn't spoken of it in over a year. What would she say? That she fell into another century, crowned an emperor, fell in love, won a war, and vanished during her own wedding. She tried therapy. She tried silence. She even tried convincing herself that maybe she'd imagined the entire thing during the blackout at the Korean history site. Trauma response. A lucid dream from a fractured mind. Weeks later, Ava wandered the quiet halls of the National Museum of Korea. She told herself it was research, that as a visiting scholar she had every right to be here, that if she buried herself in artifacts, she might forget the orchard, the blood moon, the man who vanished from her arms. But the truth was simpler. She was chasing a ghost. Her steps slowed in the Legends of the Lost Empires exhibit. Digital glass screens flickered to life as she passed, animating forgotten battles, dynasties erased by time. And then, her breath caught. At the center of the hall stood a statue, tall, stern, familiar. Duck Hwan, his face carved in bronze and marble, eternal, regal. The plaque read, King Duck Hwan the Bold, who vanished during his wedding to the warrior queen. Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. She reached out, fingertips trembling against the glass, whispering, You were real. It was all real. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the rail, and then she saw it, etched faintly into the base of the statue, something that didn't belong. A symbol, a circle, a ring, her ring, the plain gold band from the modern world. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her chest heaved. It wasn't just a statue. It was his message. I was here. I loved you. I will find you again. Shaking, she stumbled onward into the adjoining gallery. Unknown dynasties. And there, displayed in a small glass case, was a tarnished battle coin. Her heart stopped. On its surface, worn but still clear, her face, her curls, her profile, her expression of steel. The plaque read, Queen Ava, believed to have commanded the turning point battle of the Lost Empire. Her hands trembled violently. She staggered back, tears spilling hot and uncontrollable. She wasn't insane. She wasn't dreaming. It happened. It all happened. That night, Ava paced her hotel room, sleepless. She scrolled through old photos, sketched half memories, relived the duel, the kiss beneath the blood moon, the way he had whispered sovereign like a vow, and then the return, the stealing of him from her. She pressed her forehead to the cold glass of the window, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline. Her voice cracked into the night. Where are you, Duck Hwan? Duck Hwan searched for her for months. The nights were the hardest. Duck Hwan would lie awake in a penthouse bed that felt colder than any battlefield. The city lights stretched endlessly beyond the glass, but all he saw was firelight flickering across her face. He remembered her laughter as she teased him during training, the sharpness of her voice when she defied a council of nobles, the weight of her hand gripping his, bloodied and unyielding, as they swore beneath the cursed red moon. Her absence was a wound that never closed. More than once, he woke in the middle of the night, hand outstretched across empty sheets, whispering her name like a prayer. Ava. But the silence never answered. Day after day, he drowned himself in work. But every glass reflection, every passing face on the street became hers. He saw her in the lines of strangers, heard her voice in the hum of Seoul. Once, during a shareholder meeting, he froze mid-sentence when the smell of magnolia perfume drifted past. It wasn't her, but for a moment he believed. His assistants whispered that the young heir seemed haunted, distracted, but they didn't know, couldn't know. He wasn't just searching for a woman. He He was searching for his sovereign, so he searched every archive, every database, every obscure corner of university registries. Huantek's power gave him access, but what fueled him wasn't influence. It was love, and night after night, he replayed her face beneath the blood moon, the whisper of her vow, the way she clung to him before the orchard swallowed them. He would not accept a world without her. And then, one night, as neon buzzed outside his window, his screen lit with an academic paper on drone ethics, a name, Ava Lilly, Chicago. His hand shook over the keyboard. His breath caught in his throat. She was real, alive, here, in this world. That same week, Huantek announced the Global Innovation Summit, a glittering, exclusive event drawing the sharpest minds in defense, engineering, and technology. The invitation bore Ava's name, gilded in gold. She thought it was coincidence. A professor had nominated her, a lucky chance. She never knew it was Duck Huan. She stepped off the plane to find a sleek, unmarked car waiting. A driver bowed. "Welcome, miss. Lily." Everywhere she went in Seoul, doors opened, rooms were tailored, gifts appeared, strange snacks from her childhood in Chicago, a scarf in her favorite shade. She frowned at each one, confused. This isn't how they treat every guest, is it? But she brushed it off, until the final night, the gala. The ballroom shimmered like glass and light. Crystal chandeliers spilled golden rain. A string quartet played low. Every guest was polished perfection. Ava entered in a sleek black dress, curls let loose, heels clicking nervously against the marble. She scanned the tables, her pulse racing when her eyes caught the list. D. Huan. Her throat closed. No, it couldn't be. She walked further into the room, stopped, and saw him by the far window. Ava's breath caught. His hair was shorter now, his suit cut sharp, his crown replaced by glass towers. But when his eyes found hers, steady, unyielding, burning, she knew. Time could cut his hair, change his clothes, steal centuries, but it could never change him. Her heart stopped. Time bent. Her steps slowed, each one an echo. The crowd faded into blur. Duck Huan turned, and for the first time in centuries, their eyes met again. Ava trembled. Her voice cracked. "I thought you were a dream." He stepped closer, every movement trembling with the weight of years. "No," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I was just the part of your life waiting to return." He reached into his jacket, drew out a small velvet pouch. Her hand shook as she opened it. Inside, the ring, the ancient black iron band, crude, scarred, the one he forged in fire, the one she once threw into the flames, the one he had kept through war, exile, and time itself. Her breath shattered. Tears blurred everything. "You kept it." "I never stopped," he said, his voice raw. "Even when the world told me it wasn't real. You were always real." And there, before Seoul's elite, he dropped to one knee, not as a prince, not as an heir, not as a CEO, just as a man who had crossed centuries for her. "Ava Lilly," he whispered, "will you let me be your now? Not your myth, not your legend, your reality." Her laugh broke through sobs. She nodded, trembling. "Only if you still want to curse." He rose, pulling her into his arms, his voice fierce in her ear. Not a curse. His lips brushed hers. A kingdom. The music swelled, a slow, aching string piece that seemed written for them. Duck Huan took her hand, pulling her gently into the center of the ballroom. The crowd parted instinctively, eyes wide, whispers scattering like sparks. But he didn't see them. Neither did she. His hand rested at her back. Her palm slid into his. They moved, not with perfect grace, but with the familiarity of two people who had once fought side by side, who had bled together, who had survived the impossible. Ava's breath broke. Her forehead pressed into his chest as the tears she had fought for months finally spilled free. Her shoulders shook. Her fists gripped his suit like she might never let go. Daquan bent his head, lips brushing her temple, whispering words no one else could hear. I searched for you in every shadow. Her sob caught in her throat. He pulled her closer, voice cracking against her hair. Every night, I closed my eyes and begged the stars to give you back. And tonight, they finally listened. She trembled harder, her tears soaking into his shirt. I thought I lost you forever. You did, he whispered, tightening his hold, but forever isn't enough to keep me from you. She lifted her face, eyes blurred with tears, and met his gaze. He leaned in, their lips almost touching, his whisper a vow. I found you once across centuries. I'll find you again as many times as it takes. Her laugh broke through tears, soft, disbelieving, undone. And I'll always come. He kissed her then, not like a prince, not like an emperor, but like a man who had carried her name through blood, war, and time, and finally had her back. The music swelled, the crowd vanished, and as they danced, holding each other like the world could end again at any moment, it was no longer a ballroom. It was an orchard, a battlefield, a blood moon, everywhere they had ever been, everything they had ever survived, alive here now. The morning light in Seoul was soft and unhurried. It filtered through the gauze curtains, spilled over the floorboards, and kissed the quiet edges of a penthouse overlooking the Han River. The world outside buzzed with a city that never slept, but inside the penthouse, Ava Lily was asleep, or pretending to be. She lay stretched across Daquan's side of the bed, her cheek pressed against the pillow he just left. The scent of his cologne lingered, woodsy, warm, and completely unbothered by time. Footsteps patted in. Still faking sleep? He murmured, his voice already dressed in that teasing tone she loved. Ava grinned into the pillow. No idea what you're talking about. He placed the coffee cup on the nightstand and leaned down, brushing her bare shoulder with his lips. You drool when you fake sleep. I what? Daquan laughed, dodging the pillow she threw at him. They had built their new life piece by piece. No palace, no sword, no guards, just a private rooftop garden that reminded them of the ancient forest, a record player that played old jazz and Korean folk songs, a long table where Ava had finally learned to make galbi without setting off the fire alarm, a drawer filled with old scrolls, letters, and the ring that once rewrote time. He kept the black iron ring in a box labeled When It All Began. Ava now worked with Hwantech as Director of Tactical Ethics and Historical Weaponry Development. She ran a small nonprofit on the side, The Sovereign Path, helping young women in STEM, refugees, and war-affected youth. Duck Hwan, still the heir of a modern empire, let his board run most of the day-to-day. His time was better spent with her, in planning, in laughter, in rebuilding the quiet life neither of them ever had before. Sometimes, when they sat on the balcony at night, she would rest her head on his chest and whisper, "Do you ever miss the kingdom?" And he would reply, without fail, "No." The kingdom was never the palace. It was where you stood. One quiet evening, Ava and Daquan wandered the National Museum together. It had become her habit to visit the exhibits that haunted her. Statues, coins, weapons. But tonight was different. Tonight, he came with her. They moved slowly through the unknown dynasty's wing, her hand resting in his. And then, in a dimly lit alcove, Ava froze. A painting. Large, faded, the colors muted with age, but unmistakable. 2 figures beneath a red moon. An emperor and his queen. Him and her. Their wedding night, captured in brushstrokes by someone who had seen them, before the universe tore them away. Her breath left her. She reached out, fingers trembling against the glass that protected the canvas. "Duck Juan," she whispered. He stepped closer, his jaw tightening, eyes locked on the painting. His voice was low, raw. Someone remembered. Ava stared at the image of their kiss, her chest shaking with emotion. "Proof," she whispered. He turned to her, his hand finding hers, their fingers interlocking. "History never lost us." She leaned into him, pressing her forehead against his chest, whispering into his heartbeat, "Then let's never lose it either." Some days they walk hand in hand through the busy streets of Seoul. No guards, no followers, just them. A black woman from Chicago. A Korean man once called Emperor. The empire they lost was written in stone. The one they built now, it was written in morning coffee, shared rainstorms, forehead kisses, and quiet promises. The kind of empire you don't rule, the kind you live. The end. Empires rise, kingdoms fall, but their love remains sovereign. Thank you for watching The Sovereign of Two Worlds. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story. See you in the next story.